Episode 172 of the Volunteer Youth Worker Podcast. Welcome back. My name's Jeremy. I'm hosting today's conversation, and I've got Sid jumping in just a little bit later on this wonderful question that I'm so stoked on. And I want to give you kind of two heads up. First off, this is sparked by a conversation I had with a youth worker. And so there are two other conversations that are on this podcast you might listen to because they also are a little bit about this. So we'd love for you to go back and listen to episode number 6, a conversation we had with Jason Ballard about what do you do when your teenagers hate the small group questions. And Jason's a part of launching the Youth Alpha film series and has written small group questions that have been used by millions of teenagers. And so his insight there was wonderful. And then there's also another conversation with Louis Lavoie from North Point. And so Louis actually was the spark of this particular idea for me. I worked in a partner church of North Point's. And so he talked about the little steps that students can be taking in their journey that makes a big difference. And so I had a great chance to interview Louis earlier, way back on the podcast. And so if you run back to episode number 49, you can see that conversation, and you might be served by that. Now, before we jump into the official conversation, also want to let you know that this podcast is made possible by our friends at Trinity Western University. They're lovely friends. They've been a friend of the podcast. They have supported this so many different ways over the last couple of years. And we are grateful to have them on as national sponsors for our winter tour, the fall tour that we just came off of. And so we want to make sure that you know, as we head into, if you're listening to this in live time and you've got high school students in grade 12, they're beginning to process their next year plans. They've got maybe ideas on scholarships, and they're trying to figure out finances and what major they're going to go into. And all of those kinds of conversations are critical. But we want to make sure that you know the best conversation you can spark with your students is that they would consider taking time at a Christian post-secondary institution or a Christian gap year program. The statistics are off the charts. It makes such a difference that students could stay in their faith journey. It is such a big deal maker when you get a chance to spend that time post-high school in a place that cares for your faith. And Trinity Western does just that. But not only do they care about the character and the faith of their students, they also have a wide range of majors that are available that are in the marketplace, and that students can find all sorts of great opportunities from there. So take a look at Trinity Western University. They're on the west coast of our country, Canada, and we absolutely love the work that they do with their students. They have, we work with a number of different camps in the summertime, and it's fascinating to see how Trinity Western grads show up in leadership all across our country in really meaningful ways. Their students are phenomenal, and it's just a great indication of the work that they do throughout the school year. So check them out. Really appreciate them and the work that they're up to. Well, let's jump into today's conversation that I got to have with Sid Coop.
Welcome to the Volunteer Youth Worker Podcast. Youth ministries rise and fall on the volunteers. So we are here to encourage and equip you. Join the conversation as we tackle the practical questions you are asking so you can help the next generation know Jesus.
All right, everybody, welcome back. I've got Sid here, and we are talking about this big question. What are some surprising steps that your students can take in their spiritual journey? Now, Sid, I want to set this up because these are the kinds of conversations we have with volunteers all the time. We want to hear from, the people that are on the ground so we do events or, we're speaking at a conference, whatever it might be. And a lot of times volunteers, you get a chance to share and talk and you tell stories about your group and where you want it to go. And sometimes feeling like you just can't get there. And so a lot of times we get to hear about the little tiny wins stories that are kind of peeking through. And it's fun to be able to highlight and make sure that you realize, oh, those are massive deals. Like the fact that your student maybe isn't yet reading the Bible on their own or, has a deep discipleship, hour-long moment with the Lord first thing in the morning. That's okay. Set those expectations aside for a second. Let's celebrate some of the surprising wins that are actually great markers in the spiritual journey of a teenager. Okay. So Sid, these are a smattering. There's a random assortment of them. I want you to kind of fire from the hip here and talk about some of the surprising things so that a volunteer can realize, oh, they're doing good work and it is making a difference.
And can I contextualize it just a little bit, Jer?
Sure.
So last night I got to lead a grade 7 boys small group, and they were a rowdy group. And it's been a while since I've been in that space, but there was a few things I walked away from last night that I just went, that was such a cool win early on. that I don't even know if 10 years ago I would have seen it as a win, but having been a dad of kids going through that journey and then observed youth ministries and then been in it, I'm like, oh, you guys stay with it because this is pretty cool stuff that you get to be a part of. So love to give it a shot.
Okay, and remember, the dream is here, and the point of all of these things is we want students to fall in love with Jesus, to follow him with the rest of their lives, and that's the hope and the dream. That's a lifelong journey. In the meantime, as they're on that journey, there are these markers along the way that we want to celebrate. And so, Sid, why don't you toss the first one at us?
Yeah, let me give a couple. So first one I'm thinking about is when I can have a moment where I get to where a young person kind of begins to unpack just what their day was like with me. And so I'm standing in line with a group of grade 7 boys. I'm like, hey, tell me about your school. What are the things that you love about your school? What was something that something exciting that happened today? And if I can get that young person to like look at me, stay with me in the conversation for like 3 to 5 minutes, which is a lot. That's even too much. But I'm just like, oh, God's given me a type of trust with this young person early on that I already realize is a precious gift. And I actually think that's a really great and significant step towards like where God is asking me to lead this young person, and I just don't take it for granted anymore. So I think that first of all is pretty cool. And last night, when I was in the line, Jared, I had a number of junior high kids that kind of look at me and then turn to their friend and carry on. That's fine. That's acceptable. That's normal. But then I had a few that turned and actually got to engage me as I asked questions. And I was like, Lord, thanks for that favor. I think that's really important and powerful. Love that.
Okay, so focused attention and response to a personal question.
Perfect.
And the reason for that, because I want to make sure people understand, because it's not just like, hey, you can get teenagers to talk to you if you have, good questions or whatever, but they see you in these environments as a representative of the faith that we carry. And so for them, even like 10 years down the line, they're not thinking of you as, Sid, the cool guy that came to my church youth group. They're thinking of you of like, Sid, this was my small group leader. He represents faith for me, the journey towards Christ. And so being able to handle that conversation, knowing that students are viewing you often in that light, the just simple win of attention is so good to celebrate.
The simple win of attention was amazing. Hey, I'll tell you another one that I had yesterday, which was really exciting too. So we get to be at the front part of the night and we're in like the gathering place and we're playing an exciting upfront game, but I'm sitting with the grade 7s and we're trying to champion on our kids. The fact that they allowed me to sit amongst them and have fun together. So like our cheering, our celebrating, and they allowed me to do that with them and they did it with me. Again, I just went, oh, that's not a small thing. And in this moment, I have an opportunity to express to these kids that I'm enjoying being with them, which I think for an early adolescent feels a lot like being loved. When an older person actually enjoys you, it feels so much like being loved. And again, I think to be invited into that community is a great privilege and a gift. And it's a way for me to express to them their dignity as a human being and their value as someone made in the image of God. And I think enjoying a young person is a really powerful way to be able to do that. So again, I don't belittle those moments. Volunteer youth leader, when you can be with your kids in the midst of that space, as opposed to just observing them from the outside, that to me is another significant step forward in terms of creating space to experience God's love in a really transforming space. So that was my second one. And then Jared, there's the third one.
I want to speak to that because I think, so we framed the question as what are steps that your students can take. That felt a little bit more like a step that you can take, but let me reframe it because I think I actually can hear it and see it.
Yeah.
You've got these guys, these grade 7 guys, where they're actually experiencing and feeling like their community is represented here in this space. And that space is intentional. It's in the church or it's in your church ministry or your youth ministry, whatever it might be. And so students are seeing like, oh, I belong in this community, which is a faith community. That's an important step because we've all had it where we do the game and like some people are cheering and yet there is this kid who doesn't yet feel like this is his community yet. And he's disengaged or she's disengaged and she's outside of the circle. And so the minute that they start to feel like, no, these are my people and I belong here, that step for a student is huge, huge, huge.
So big. And then the next part of that step, I think that I experienced last night too, was they were celebrating each other. And if you can move a young person to start, instead of just simply promoting themselves and celebrating themselves, but actually starting to celebrate each other, that's like crazy, you guys, because that's actually how we are to function as community in the body of Christ. And here's where it shifted. So we were able to and we just made this conscious decision to say, we're going to play together really well and like all in. And then when we got into our study time and Bible study time after that, I said, this is also where we get to respect each other well and enjoy this space, but we do it in a different way. And Jer, for those kids to actually listen to each other, honor each other by allowing them to speak. I didn't see a lot of like responding to what someone else said. I think that's going to be the next level of investment in the other, which again is being shaped by Jesus. But the simple fact that the grade 7 boys allowed others to speak and then carried on that conversation without belittling or downplaying the other people, to me was again like another really significant kind of step or movement towards the journey that I want them to experience with Jesus. So again, it seems like a small thing for a junior high kid. It's not. We celebrate that moment. We don't always get it, but they continue to build to move to deeper and deeper places where my goal is where we actually process together, learn from each other. And as we belong to each other, we belong to Jesus and grow in our relationship with Him. But these are foundational steps to move in that direction. So really foundational steps.
Yeah. Okay. So the third thing I'm hearing you say, that listening and honoring each other in the conversation. And if I could just, again, peel back down to just a deeper light layer. Now these students, because they listen to each other and they talk to each other at school all day long. So just the act of listening to another teenager or somebody else talk isn't a spiritual win, and it's not a step in their spiritual journey. But when you're having a spiritual conversation in your small group, the conversations about the truth of what you've heard from the platform, it's an unpacking of whatever the spiritual principle is, and students are listening and honoring each other in that conversation, that's an important step in your spiritual journey, because that's the community working together to help us as we go towards Christ. Now, these kids, these guys, these girls, they may not even have made a profession of faith yet, but the fact that they were doing at least at this point 1, 2, or 3 are important steps in their journey. I was talking to this youth worker today who is encouraging he actually used this podcast. So he used episode 6 we did with Jason Ballard. What do you do when your kids hate the small group questions? and training up with his leaders on it. Because what's happening is they have got all of these kids who aren't church kids. They're not firmly planted in faith. They're still way back in their journey. And he's trying to help encourage his leaders to see, hey, their profession of faith might be 6 months down the line, but the work we do from here to then is going to matter. And let's celebrate the wins along the way as we get a chance to include these students and help them take steps that they wouldn't say is steps in their faith journey, because they don't necessarily have a faith journey yet, but they kind of do, and you're noticing it. Okay.
Well, and then that got us to the fourth one, and I got there's a couple more that are standing out in my mind, and you continue to unpack them, which is great, Jer. But the next one was when we ended our time. I said, "Hey, what's one thing I can be praying about for you?" And to have like most of them speak to that, and very few of them were like the stupid comment. Like most of them were actually somewhat connected to the study and pretty honest about their journey. And again, I just go, oh, that you would be open to having somebody pray for you and share out of that space, which means whether you're aware of it or not, but you're acknowledging that there is a higher power, who of course we know to be Jesus, and we're continuing to introduce them to Him, is a really important piece of that experience. And here's how I connect the dots. I had low-level contact and playing together. For me, that was great. They had got to experience what it's like to actually enjoy each other in an honorable way. That's a kingdom call of community, a small taste, but it resonated deeply. Then that actually led into the conversation where they got to taste again a little bit what it looks like to respect each other in those conversations, which of course resonates really deeply. And then there was a third place where we actually got to share a prayer request. Now, there's other spaces we all want to go, but that was to me really awesome and resonated, deeply again. And then, Jer, at the end of the night, we had like marshmallow roast outside and games.
Wait, before you get to the end of the night, let's just make sure. Number 4, willingness to have someone pray for them. Because again,
totally great.
You've got students in your group. It is a win when and it's a part of their spiritual journey, when they're open to you praying for them. And gosh, if they're going to give you a prayer request, please Write it down. Keep track of it. Honestly pray about it. Ask God, ask God seriously for an answer to this prayer in a supernatural way for the sake of the faith of those kids, right? Maybe it's a silly prayer like, my cat, man, it, busted up his paw and we want it to be okay. Like, pray hard for that cat, because honestly, the minute that cat gets healed, or whatever happens to cats, I don't know, they just bounce back. If you can help clarify, hey, we prayed for that and look how God answered that prayer. And hopefully the cat's okay. And if not, you have to angle, obviously, the theological conversation differently. But the point being, make sure when you pray, you not only pray for the students and you remember it, but then you remind them a week later, hey, we prayed about that and let's see how God answered those particular prayers.
Oh, that's so good, man. And I'll be honest with you, last night by the end, we were making it through. So I didn't track the prayer request the way I needed to. That's the right answer. And even if you can only track 2 or 3 of them and come back to those kids, that's going to be powerful as well. One of the things that I experienced then at the end of the night, Jer, is I was sitting on the bale and we were doing like marshmallow roasts. And I had kids come sit down beside me and just talk. And I was like, oh, you feel comfortable enough to sit here and we're having this conversation. And again, what it said to me is you're feeling safe enough to position yourself at the end of the night to just be present and open. And that to me, like when we can create an environment that feels safe for someone younger than us, that's actually a powerful movement of the soul, which I really believe are steps towards feeling safe before the Father, because we are actually in many ways the representative of the Father to them in those moments. And I just remember last night, again, feeling really privileged and honored and excited about how God positioned some of those young kids. And I walked away from last night, Jer, again going, for most people, this wouldn't have been big aha moments. We didn't have an altar call. We didn't have, a missions trip. But I just felt really strongly that kids got to experience Jesus and his design for how we should be together. Not perfectly, but in touch points that we get to continue to build on week over week over week, year over year over year. That powerfully transforms and shapes someone for the rest of their lives in really consequential ways. So those moments, like those practical moments, are crazy. I think the last one that I'm looking for, Jer, I'm going to feel like maybe we're getting, even into a deeper place when one of those kids comes to me and gives me a high five before they go home with their parents. Do you know what I mean? Like then I'm like, oh man, the gap is being closed in a really precious way. And I get excited about those movements. I think they're really powerful.
So let me celebrate then that 5th thing as just simple presence or attendance. The fact that a student shows up says something. It might say something about what their parents are forcing them to do, but it's saying something that they wouldn't put up a stink enough to not have to show up and come to this particular program. The fact that they're there is something you should celebrate. And honestly, as your group grows and you've got students who are, in and out, or they're doing other events, whenever they prioritize that gathering, gosh, that is something in their spiritual journey that you can celebrate. Okay, so we've got 5 things. Let me do a quick recap. Sid, you wrap us up if there's anything else you want to say, and we'll leave people. Number 1, spiritual step is that focused attention and response to a personal question. So we celebrate that. Number 2 is when students start seeing their community, that their group is actually a part of this church, this youth group, that they belong here. Number 3 is when you see them listen or honor other people in their small group, paying attention to this spiritual conversation. Number 4, a willingness to have somebody pray for them. And number 5, simple attendance, that they showed up. Makes a big difference and means a lot. Anything else you want to say to people?
No, dude, I love it. Just again, like these small things matter. They add up. They build incredibly rich foundations that we can see long-term growth come from. So really excited about the work you guys do as volunteers. Thank you so much. Stay in it. It really does matter.
Yeah, it makes an eternal difference. And we'll see you back here next time for another conversation here on the Volunteer Youth Worker Podcast.